Welcome back to Crazy Dave's Kitchen, where today we're going to be making a Portuguese cornbread, also known as broa. And what's unique about this is instead of using cornmeal, we are going to be using corn flour to make this wonderful bread, and it's very delicious. So, as I mentioned, corn flour, we're going to have 1 2/3 cup of corn flour. We're going to be using 1 cup of bread flour and a 1/2 cup of rye flour, and that's going to be the base of our dough, along with 2 tablespoons of honey, 2 teaspoons of instant yeast. We're going to be using instant yeast again, and also 1 teaspoon of salt. Also on the stove I have boiling water. So we're going to do this a little on the different side. We're going to be taking the cornmeal, or the corn, sorry, now I can say cornmeal, right? With corn flour, we're going to take the corn flour and the honey, and then we're going to pour boiling water, 1 1/4 cup of boiling water, and mix this together. And then we're going to let it kind of sit and cool for about 30 minutes. So it's going to take a little while to make this come together. So we're going to just take the honey along with the corn flour. And then I'm going to just, you can see it's steaming, boiling hot. 1 1/4 cup. Super hot boiling water. We're going to add this to the bowl, and with the paddle attachment, we're going to mix this into what would be considered a corn mush. Just like so. And it's going to get pretty mushy. Now, because this is so hot, this is why we're going to have to let it sit for about 30 minutes until it becomes just warm to the touch. Because right now, this is going to be steaming hot, and we don't want it to kill the yeast. So by letting it cool, we're going to add all the yeast and the salt and the other dry ingredients, along with a 1/4 cup of room temperature water. And you'll kind of see how that will come together. So once this mixes up like this, nice corn mush, we're going to take our spatula and kind of get it off the paddle as much as we can. And push it down from the sides as well. Looks nice and mushy. Just scrape this down into the center of the bowl. Just like so. Very nice. Got a few little straggler pieces. If you miss a little bit, it's really no big deal. We're adding more flours in a little bit. So, like I say, we're going to just leave this. We're going to leave this sit. And what we're really doing here is we're letting this corn flour we're letting it hydrate. And so we've got the water in there, and we're going to let it hydrate. And it's really going to create more moisture when this goes together. You'll see it doesn't look very good, like it's going to work, but then it does because of all the moisture that's soaking in there now. So we're going to leave this sit for 30 minutes, and I'll be back then and show you how to put the rest of this together. Okay, so we're back, and the corn flour has been hydrating now for 30 minutes, and we're ready to add the other ingredients. So we're going to go ahead and add our 1 cup of bread flour, our 1/2 cup of rye flour. We're going to add our salt, and then our 2 teaspoons of instant yeast, along with 1/4 cup of room temperature water. And when this starts to mix, you will see that it's going to look dry, and you're going to feel like you're going to need to add some extra water, but don't. Trust me on this. It will eventually, it's going to all come together and come away from the sides of the bowl and form a nice big ball of dough. So we're just going to let this run. It may take 5, maybe 7 minutes or so to form the dough, but it will happen. Okay, so as you can see, the dough has now formed a nice ball, pulled away from the sides of the bowl, and is ready to be formed into the loaf. And again, like I say, it looks extremely dry when you first start out, but if you give it a good 5, 7 minutes or so, you can see the bowl is nice and clean. All of our corn flour is hydrated, and all of the other flours are mixed right in there. So at this point, we're just going to form it into a ball, kind of sealing up the bottom a little bit. And we're going to make it in like about a 5-inch estimate of 5-inch round. And also with this 5-inch round, we're going to put it on a parchment-lined baking sheet, just like so. And then the one other thing we're going to do to this is we're going to take a little bit of bread flour. We're just going to sprinkle some bread flour on the top. And then we're going to let this dough rise for an hour and a half. And when this dough rises, because it's a little bit different, it's a very dense dough, so it's not going to rise, it's not going to double in size. It's going to maybe rise 50%. 50% of the size it is now. It's not going to be a big, giant, big loaf, because as you can see, this one here that we finished earlier is just risen a little bit. So this is going to sit for an hour and a half, and then after that we're going to go to the oven. About 30 minutes into the hour and a half, we're going to preheat the oven to 500 degrees, and then the first bake will be in a 500-degree oven for 15 minutes, and then you're going to turn that temperature down to 300, and then it's going to be 300 for about 30 minutes, and that's going to make the final dough. So again, we're going to let it rise for an hour and a half, and then we'll put it in a 500-degree oven for 15 minutes, and then lower that temperature down to 300 degrees for 30 minutes. Okay, so here we are with this was our loaf that just came out of the oven. You can see that the parchment paper is dark, and that's because parchment paper really, its maximum temperature is more like 450, 475. It'll burn at 500, which is why when we bake this, we bake it for only 15 minutes at the 500 degrees, and then after 15 minutes, we lower the heat to 300, and then continue baking for another 30 minutes. And as you can see, the loaf comes out quite well. It's cracked. It looks very similar to the other loaf, both in size and in quality. When the bread comes out, it's not very, it's not like bread-like, but it's also not like muffin-like. But it's sturdy and tasty. With a little butter on there, it's very good. It also goes well with chili. I made a while the bread was baking, I made a roasted sweet potato and black bean chili that I'll be posting in a future episode somewhere down the way. I didn't film it. I just figured between the different cook times, I just put something up in between. So, again, very rude of me for eating. and talking at the same time, but please give this Portuguese cornbread a shot. I think you'll really enjoy it. This is about the fourth loaf I've made this week because I just like to test to make sure it all works out. But it really does come out nice. It comes out very flavorful. I would suggest maybe even toasting this bread and putting a little butter on there and some honey would be great if you really want the original flavor of when you first baked it. And also, side note, it only lasts for about 3 days, so you have to eat it fast. So if you're going to make this, eat it fast. Thanks again for tuning in to Crazy Dave's Kitchen, and we'll see you next time.